The rain pounded relentlessly on the black umbrellas clustered around the open grave, each drop a cold reminder of the void left by my adoptive mother. Eleanor. I'd always called her Mom. The woman who'd bandaged my scraped knees in our quiet Seattle suburb, who'd cheered at my high school graduations, who'd been my rock through the mundane heartaches of life. But that day, as the minister droned on about eternal peace, I slipped away from the crowd, seeking a moment alone in the funeral home's side parlor. The air was thick with the scent of wilting roses, and my chest ached with a grief so raw it felt like it might swallow me whole. I collapsed into a velvet armchair, burying my face in my hands. When the door creaked open, I froze, peering through my fingers. And there she was, my Aunt Lydia, Eleanor's older sister, slipping in like a shadow, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was a venomous hush, slicing through the silence. She's finally gone. The lie holds. No one knows. A pause, then a chilling relief in her tone. Our secret dies with her. She hung up, exhaled sharply, and vanished back into the hall, oblivious to my presence. Those words lodged in my throat like shards of glass. What lie? What secret? In that instant, the woman I'd mourned as my mother felt like a stranger, and a simmering fury began to coil in my gut, whispering promises of retribution for whatever betrayal they'd woven into my life. The funeral blurred into a haze of condolences and casseroles back at the house, but Lydia's whisper haunted me, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. I couldn't shake it, the way her voice had carried not grief, but liberation. As the guests trickled out, I wandered upstairs to Eleanor's bedroom, the one room that still smelled like her vanilla lotion and faint lavender soap. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, just something to anchor me amid the chaos. My fingers trailed over her dresser, knocking against a loose panel in the baseboard hidden behind a stack of old photo albums. Heart racing, I pried it open, revealing a dusty metal lockbox, its key taped to the underside. Inside, no jewelry or cash, just a stack of yellowed envelopes, bound by a frayed red string. The handwriting alternated between Eleanor's neat cursive and Lydia's sharp scrawl. They dated back over 30 years. Before I was born. I sank to the floor, the carpet muffling my ragged breaths, and began to read. The first letter from Eleanor. Dearest Lydia, the doctors confirmed it. I'm barren. But your news. This could be our salvation. We'll make it work. No one will know. Lydia's reply. I'm scared. Ellie. This baby. Dad would disown me. Promise me you'll raise it as yours. I can't face the shame. Page after page unfolded their conspiracy. Lydia, the golden child in our strict, evangelical family from Tacoma, had fallen for a married professor during her college internship in Portland. Pregnant and terrified, she turned to Eleanor, who was freshly married but devastated by infertility. They plotted it meticulously, Lydia hiding out in a rented apartment in Oregon, faking a study abroad program, while Eleanor simulated a pregnancy with pillows and doctor's notes. I was that baby. Not Eleanor's daughter by blood, but Lydia's secret shame, handed over like a parcel to preserve the family facade. The revelation hit like a freight train, shattering the fragile shell of my identity. All those years, I'd sensed Lydia's disdain, the curt birthday cards with cash instead of hugs, the way she'd avert her eyes at family gatherings, her career as a high-powered corporate lawyer in downtown Seattle keeping her conveniently distant. I'd internalized it as my fault, some inherent flaw that made me unlovable. But now, it was their lie, their betrayal, that had poisoned everything. Eleanor, the woman I'd idolized, had played the devoted mother while burying the truth that could have spared me decades of quiet self-doubt. And Lydia? She'd orchestrated it all to salvage her pristine reputation, climbing the ladder at her firm without the baggage of a scandalous single motherhood. Rage bubbled up, hot and unrelenting, drowning out the grief. I wasn't just mourning a loss, I was awakening to a lifetime of manipulation. That night, alone in the empty house, I stared at the letters until my eyes burned, plotting my first move. Revenge wouldn't be swift or flashy, it would be a slow burn, mirroring the silent torment they'd inflicted on me. I'd make them pay by unraveling their perfect lives, starting with the family they so desperately protected. In the weeks that followed, I played the part of the grieving daughter flawlessly, attending to Eleanor's estate with mechanical efficiency. But beneath the surface, my mind churned with calculated fury. I dug deeper, using my job as a freelance journalist to access public records and old contacts. I uncovered more hospital bills from Oregon in Lydia's name, disguised as medical leave, and Eleanor's infertility clinic files, stamped just months before my birth. The pieces fit like a damning puzzle, confirming their deceit. My father, Robert, Eleanor's husband, a mild-mannered accountant who died a decade ago, had been complicit too, signing off on the fake birth certificate. The betrayal stung deeper. He'd treated me with distant affection, always more invested in his golf buddies than family dinners. Now I knew why. I was never truly his. The psychological toll mounted, sleepless nights plagued by nightmares of being traded like currency, days blurred by a hollow ache that therapy couldn't touch. I confided in no one, letting the silence fester, just as they'd silenced my origins. My target sharpened on Lydia. She was the architect, the one who'd whispered relief at Eleanor's grave. I'd expose her, but not crudely. No, I'd infiltrate her world, make her confront the monster she'd created. I started small. Anonymous tips to her firm's ethics board about irregularities in old cases she'd handled, nothing traceable, just enough to spark audits. Lydia prided herself on her unblemished record. I watched from afar as stress lines etched her face during our forced family check-ins. "Everything okay at work, Aunt Lydia?" I'd ask innocently, masking my satisfaction as she brushed it off with a tight smile. But the real strike came when I tracked down my biological father, now a retired artist in a rundown Portland studio. His name was Marcus Hale, and after a tense email exchange, he agreed to meet. Over cheap coffee in a dingy diner, he spilled it all, the passionate affair, Lydia's abrupt disappearance, her cold letter ending things without explanation. She said it was for the best, he muttered, eyes misty. Never mentioned a child. I recorded every word, the audio a weapon in my arsenal. The encounter left me reeling. Marcus was a broken man, his life derailed by her abandonment. My anger toward Lydia intensified. She'd not only stolen my truth, but ruined lives in her wake. The price of her choices? I'd ensure she paid it tenfold. The confrontation brewed during a mandatory estate meeting at Eleanor's house, now mine by will. Lydia arrived in her power suit, clipboard in hand, barking orders to the realtor about quick sales and market values. My cousins hovered like vultures, eyeing the property as easy cash. The air crackled with unspoken greed. But I waited, biding my time. As she droned on about appraisals, I interrupted. "Before we sell Mom's house, let's talk about the real inheritance, the lies." The room stilled. Lydia's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "Claire." I pulled out the letters, fanning them like evidence in a trial. "These. Your pact with Eleanor. I'm not her daughter, I'm yours. You gave me away to save your skin." Gasps rippled through the relatives. Lydia paled, stammering denials. But I pressed on, playing Marcus's recording. Her facade crumbled. She sank into a chair, tears streaking her makeup. "It was to protect you," she whispered. But her voice broke on the lie. The family erupted, cousins demanding explanations, uncles muttering about scandals. I watched her world fracture. The corporate queen reduced to a sobbing mess. But victory tasted bitter. The exposure alienated half the family, labeling me the troublemaker. My own psyche fractured further. The revenge a Pyrrhic win that amplified my isolation. In the aftermath, Lydia's career teetered. The firm, sniffing scandal, sidelined her from big clients. She reached out, pleading for forgiveness in tearful voicemails. "Claire, I did it out of love. Let me explain." But I ignored them, letting her stew in the silence she'd enforced on me. Yet the toll mounted. My journalism gigs dried up amid the family drama. Friends distanced themselves from the messy fallout. Nights found me staring at ceilings, questioning if vengeance had hollowed me out like it had her. Marcus, emboldened by our talk, sued for paternity acknowledgement, dragging Lydia into court. The proceedings were brutal, depositions revealing her perjury on my birth records, headlines in local papers painting her as a heartless abandoner. She lost the case, ordered to pay back child support she'd never given, her savings gutted. Seeing her in the courtroom, frail and defeated, sparked a twisted empathy amid my rage. Had I become the monster, mirroring her cold calculations? The psychological scars deepened. Therapy sessions unearthed buried resentments. But healing felt elusive, tainted by the blood I'd drawn. Months turned to a year. And the house, Eleanor's house, now my sanctuary, became a battleground of memories. I refused to sell, turning it into a quiet refuge where I sifted through the wreckage. Lydia showed up unannounced one rainy evening, drenched and desperate. "Claire, please. I can't live with this anymore." We sat in the kitchen, the same table where Eleanor had baked cookies, and she poured out her soul, the suffocating family expectations, the terror of 19-year-old pregnancy, Eleanor's plea to share the child. "I thought distance would protect us both," she sobbed. But it destroyed me. For the first time, I saw her not as the villain, but as a victim of her own choices, trapped in a web of societal shame. My revenge had exacted its price, her ruin, my loneliness, but it also forced truth into the light. I didn't forgive her. Not fully. The betrayal's wound ran too deep. Yet in that moment, I chose silence over further destruction, letting her leave with a fragile thread of connection. The cycle of pain, born from their pact, ended not in explosion, but in a weary truce. Revenge had taught me its cruel lesson. It avenges the past, but at the cost of poisoning the future.